If you're watching this video, probably got an oil leak on the back side of the motor, dripping down. This is what it's gonna be. Oil cooler / oil filter housing. So let's go ahead and dive into this Mercedes, give you guys the tips and the steps you need to get this part here replaced. CLA 250. Let's go ahead and get this thing up in the air. I already got all the lift points set underneath. All right, so this customer originally came in for an oil leak off the turbo, and I did the oil drain we replaced, and then I did the feed O-ring and cleaned most of this up. Started it, let it run, and I noticed oil leaking back here. Usually there's one sensor here that typically leaks, but in this case, it's coming up a little bit higher, and you can see the fresh oil leaking. So that bolt right there, that E10 or E8, is where the oil is actually dripping from. You can see right there, it's about to drip. On the oil cooler itself on these, there is a O-ring that typically gets flattened. When you're looking at it, you're seeing the bottom of this bolt. So the oil seeping past this O-ring. When we get it off, you guys will see how flat it is. It's common on these, and the dealer doesn't sell it separately. They only sell the unit. It's like 80 bucks at the dealer. Not too bad on pricing, but it's all plastic just with this little cooler. And then you got some coolant that runs through. But to get to this, you can't access it from down here on the bottom. It's actually got to be accessed from underneath the intake. So we'll go ahead, lower the car back down now that I showed you guys like what the oil leak kind of looks like. Drop it down. You can see the oil drips right there from where I pulled in. So what we're gonna go ahead and do first, all these hoses, I mean this one's already loose, but all these hoses that are running over the top of the intake, we're gonna go ahead and remove this line here, this line, and then we're gonna remove all of these electrical connectors. Remove this tube here, took it out of the little clamp. I'll remove this tube here, it was already loose, so I just took the electrical connector off. And then we got this one, I tucked them out of the way. They actually run over and connect onto the manifold there. So I just popped them out the manifold, moved them over here by the AC line. And all these connectors, 1, 2, there's some more over here. I'm gonna go ahead and get this whole wire harness off of the intake and pull it over out of my way. I typically just use a pick tool. There's other ways to do it. They sell tools that do this, but I just use a pick tool like that. And then a little bit of push down on this gray tab and it'll release. All right, so let's look at one right here that is not unlocked yet. There is a black release tab here that has to be pushed down, but the only way to access it or to push it down is just to pop this loose like that. So pull on it, there you go, release. Get all the rest of these connectors off here. Boost control solenoids and purge and whatever else sensors are up on here. Got all the connectors off, the harness pretty much out the way. There is one plastic clip here on the manifold. Try your best not to break it. Pretty easy to pop out if you have a clip removal tool, but you just want to keep that little stub there alive. That way it holds all the wiring in place. Now we have a little more access to the manifold. What we're gonna do next is we're actually gonna remove this air box here out of our way to get access to the throttle body, because the charge pipe actually bolts to the throttle body with some Torx bolts, 4 of them. Get those 4 bolts out to get the throttle body disconnected from the intake. That way we can pull the intake up and out and then access the oil cooler from there. Let's go ahead, get this air box and computer, everything out of the way. I'm gonna first take this clamp loose here. This could be different, but this clamp is a 7 here. These clips out the side of the computer. And then the wiring that attaches here, see, you usually just pull up and they pull off. That one's just being a little stubborn. So that way we get everything that's connected to the airbox out. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and pop this off. It already has a crack in it here, but it's just held in by these little tabs. So we'll pop that out the way and get this airbox removed. We're gonna get our pick tool and get that loose. They usually come out pretty easy. Get that out like so. It's literally just this clip here and one on the bottom, but typically once you get this top one out, it'll pop out. Should be able to lift up on this airbox once we make sure all the wiring and everything is detached from it like it is. With enough force, the box popped out. You can see it's held in there and it's held in up here. So now we have access to the charge pipe. And the bolts that we're talking about are gonna be 1, 2. The third one is very hard to see because it's behind this pipe. So I'll show you guys how we're gonna access those, but you can actually see the fourth one right there. All right, so next, I just get all this wiring up here out of my way, just so I don't break or mess up anything when I'm working in this area. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this brake booster vacuum hose, and I'm gonna take off all these electrical connectors here just to get some more visual clearance on this side. In these style clips, you pretty much just have to squeeze to release 2 side tabs. If squeezing it's not helping, you can always get like a pick tool or something on the corners and get it to release from this lip here. Pop this wire out of here. I'm gonna take this 10mm out. Now we got a little wiggle room in the pipe that's gonna help us. There is one here. Right. Then we got the throttle body one.
What you think? You think it's too short of a ride?
Right. We got the wiring out of our way now, so we have a little more access to the bolts. I'm actually gonna take this clip here loose as well. You slide the tab up and then you just pull up. So you see how I'm sliding the tab over to the side, and then you gotta just pull up on the line. Sorry, I'm trying to record and use my hands. Perfect, just like that. So that is released, and now that you can see that top bolt there. All right, so I got a long extension and I got a Torx T25 Torx. What I do, get it up in there, and then we're gonna break them loose. Just like so. Break the bolt loose. Down to this bottom one here. Always break them loose first, that way you don't strip the head out. For this second bolt here, I typically use 2 long 1/4" extensions. You can see I'm barely on the head there. Loose by hand first, so we don't strip it. Pull that one out. Get it lined up in there. And then go ahead and break it loose. But the throttle body bolts are out. Should have some movement here in the throttle body. That way when you go to take the intake off, the throttle body and the charge pipe will stay there, but the intake can come up out the back. All right, so this purge here, it's just a little black tab that you push over to the side, and then you could slide it out. Got the clip tool, slide it back out the way. All right. For this boost control or pressure control solenoid, it's 2 tins that hold it on, one on the top, one on the bottom. It's just easier to access the bolts on the intake if this stuff is out of your way. So this one was just this little tab. It's held in right there by the clip. So you slide the tab forward, slide it over here. This one, 2 tins, and it pops right off. 1 tin coming off. Typically, you could just take the bottom nut loose, and then you can slide the whole unit, since it's slotted, out without taking it all the way off. just like so. And we'll just wrap that up out of our way. And now we have access to everything. This is that bottom tin I was talking about. I had one little straggler back here. Right, so this E10 socket here, oh, dropped it. We're gonna use to take off all these bolts. We got one there, one down there, a little rusty. Got one here, and one up top. Let's just take a short extension to get to. Not too bad. Same thing with this one. I'm gonna go ahead and get it on there, break it through. This one up top here. One more on this back side right here. As you can see now, the manifold is nice and loose. So I'm gonna use both of my hands to get this manifold pulled up out of here. Get this vacuum line on the side when you're trying to get the manifold out. All right, got all the tubes disconnected from the manifold. Just gotta get all these lines off of here. And the manifold comes out. There is the purge that attaches to the bottom of the manifold right there. So just make sure you get that put back on. Slides right onto there with a little rubber boot. Now you can see the thermostat there, and the oil cooler actually sits off to the back. We know, looking at the new part, there's 3 bolts that hold this down towards the bottom. So we're gonna go ahead, remove this coolant hose, this one, and then we'll get a short extension and the ratchet down there and get these 3 bolts removed. Got the first coolant hose off. This clamp is hidden by this harness here. So we got this second line out of the way. Actually, these bottom bolts are a E12 socket. Kind of got a feel for these. You can't really see them, but I got this. Got it on one there. Go ahead and get it broken loose. Got the first one out, getting that second one there. It's pretty much right off to the side of it. You see they're pretty long. I got one. Got the other ones. Okay, found the third one. You can see the shiny socket right where my finger is right there. Go ahead and remove that bolt. Cooler is coming up. Sure, it's gonna be leaking water and oil, but you can see this gasket is flat. So the oil just starts to leak right past it. Let's do a gasket comparison here, look. You can't even, I mean, it's flat as can be. Look how raised this one is. So we're gonna go ahead and clean this area off where this mounts, just to make sure the surface area is 100% clean and there's no debris or nothing like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and get this new unit installed. So you can see the area down there. We're gonna go ahead and get all that wiped down and get everything cleaned up with some brake clean. All right, every time I wipe it, starts leaking oil again. You see the OE bolts had Loctite on them, so we're gonna go ahead and throw some blue Loctite back on them. Got the 3 bolts started by hand down there, so I'm gonna go ahead and get them torqued down. All right, so we got that bottom line on. It's hard to see the clamp because it's hidden by this harness that runs across it, but we got the clamp on and tight. Do a little pull tug on the hose. The top one connected, got the hose clamp in place. Do a little pull tug, make sure it doesn't pull off. Cool. So we'll get the intake surface cleaned up, make sure we have nothing down in the holes of the cylinder. So these gaskets are still pretty thick. So we're gonna go ahead and just reuse these ones. Just gonna clean all whatever is out in the manifold and we're gonna put it back in the car. I got these surfaces there on the head cleaned and checked inside. Everything looks clear. No foreign objects or nothing like that. There's this nipple on the back here. It goes to that hose right there that actually runs under the intake and attaches to the bottom of the manifold here. I'm gonna attach that and attach this at the same time as we're getting the intake down in there. I'm gonna need both of my hands, but I'm just giving you guys that suggestion. Put that on there first, put that on here, or you can actually put this on first and then attach it to the manifold however you want to do it. All right, we got the manifold in place, and I got a couple of the bolts just tightened up by hand. I'm gonna get them all lined up. Whatever you do, don't forget this vacuum line down on the side. All right, we got the boost solenoid put back on there. So let's go ahead and plug the harness back up. I did get that clamp put on. All right, so those two tubes click in the back there. We got all the electrical connectors and everything connected on every sensor. This electrical connector plugged in. Push that safety tab in place. Get this one pushed back into the intake. This one clips back on here, like so. Back here is almost together. We just got a couple of little clamps and wiring. We just gotta move down in the right places. But other than that, everything else is coming together. Just getting all these little holder clips back attached. We're gonna go ahead now and just get all the throttle body bolts back in place, get everything lined up together. All right. Getting the throttle body lined up to the intake. Nice and snug. This bottom one. Now that those are all tight, we'll go ahead, start hooking and plugging up all the sensors and everything. Right, let's get the throttle body plugged in. Just remember, when you're putting the airbox in, this wiring, it usually has a clamp here, but it's somebody pulled the airbox out before, so it's broken. But this little nub goes in that hole, and then there's another one down towards the bottom. So we'll go ahead, make sure all the wiring's going the right way, and then push it down in, and then we'll get the computer put in place. All right, we got the air box put down in place. Got the wiring running over the top. Connect this back onto here, like so. And the computer swings around there. And then we just gotta put both clips on. We're good to go. Put that in place. Go ahead and get the cover put back in place. Sprayed a bunch of brake clean underneath, so I'm gonna go ahead, wipe it down, and then blow it off with air. All right, we got it all nice and clean. You can see the cooler better now because it's all nice and cleaned up, and it's a fresh unit. Oil's topped off, coolant's topped off. All the work's double checked over. Everything's plugged up. Just gonna let it run for a second, fill up the oil cooler, and then I'm gonna shut it off and just check the oil level. Make sure we're not running it low. All right, let's fire it back up. Sounds good. Put the hood down real fast. Just put it up in the air. All right. Looks dry to me now. Those bolts up there ain't got no oil running off of them. You can see. All right. Let's go ahead and take a ride in the front seat of the Mercedes. Just gonna get a little in the boost. Make sure we ain't got no oil leaks anywhere underneath. Get some oil pressure running through the motor. Get some coolant pressure through. We had a couple coolant lines off, and we had the turbo feed drain, and we had the oil cooler off. So, and the charge pipe and the intake. So yeah, let's just ensure we don't got no leaks, no under boost codes. Oh yeah, that's picking up in the boost pretty quick. I I get a lot of these Mercedes in. I've done a few turbos on this thing, so next turbo job I get in here, I'll go ahead and drop a video on the channel about replacing the turbo. So look out for that one coming up, because the years are rolling by and these things are starting to have oil leaks, coolant leak. That'll wrap it up for this video. I'm just gonna go on about 15-20 minute test drive, make sure that the car is good to go for the customer, and he can come pick it up, get paid. Appreciate y'all watching. Like, comment, subscribe for more to come.